So, guys, as we're gearing up here for getting ready for this this unprecedented show that we're doing during a pandemic on June 26th in Florida, what a better way to relive where this thing all started. Let's jump back to BKFC 1, the road to BKFC 1, everything that we were doing leading up to the 8 to 9 years leading into it, and more importantly, the 3 to 6 months leading into BKFC 1, and then all the events that took place leading into it. As we were there in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which was wow, Cheyenne, Wyoming was one hell of a town, and then the fights, the weigh-ins, the press conference, and then trending #1 on Twitter, which was unbelievable. Trending #1 on our first event, jumping up and down, just everything that happened in that event, and I just want to jump right into it. So, let's go, guys. This was a dream of mine for 9 years. I tried to put together bare knuckle fighting and make it a regulated mainstream sport. And back in August 5th of 2010 in Scottsdale, Arizona. 2011. Man, I'm getting old, getting demented, but that's okay. August 5th, 2011, we did Bobby Gunn versus Richie Stewart at the Fort McDowell Casino. One bare knuckle fight with an MMA undercard. We streamed it on the internet, on an internet platform that I'm not allowed to mention right now, but that site crashed. We had over 1 million people trying to sign in and log in to buy that fight. It was very inexpensive at the time. I think it was, $3.99 or $4.99?
Yeah,
and we had so many people that were coming into that at the same time that the paywall actually crashed. So we said, look, we have something here. Let's just keep pushing forward and trying to make this thing happen. So we did.
The cool thing about that card, though, wasn't just the bare knuckle card. It was boxing, MMA, and bare knuckle all in one card. And I thought that was a pretty cool element.
No, it was awesome. It was just different, but I mean,
back then that was before the squared circle. That was a hex.
Hexagon, remember? What did we do? Did we have it printed, the two lines in the center of the ring? Did we have it printed on, or we tape it on?
No, we actually had a logo that was a vinyl sticker that went into the middle of the ring, and we just had them stand at the edge of the sticker. So it was the same thing. It was total line.
So more importantly, the most important thing about that show, who was the commentator?
Shannon Rich. Who was the ring announcer? That's a better question.
I was the ring announcer. Junior was the commentator. That's how we started this thing.
Me and Shannon Rich, ringside.
It was crazy, man. It was an unbelievable event. ESPN did an awesome article about us.
I think it was Dan Raphael, or no?
No, it was Michael. Wasn't Mike Woods? It wasn't Mike Woods. Mike Woods has been covering us now. He's fantastic. It was. I forget who it was. It was Michael somebody, but man, he did a great story about us. What did it say? Bringing back a bygone, bare knuckle fighting. It was amazing. And then we went around from state to state to state to try to get this thing sanctioned because we knew we had something. And door after door after door slammed in our face. And I was like, we can't do this. We're done. We started up again. Got door slammed in our face. We quit again. We picked up, dusted ourselves off. Came back around, and this time we ran into my man, Brian Pedersen, the chairman of the Wyoming Mixed Martial Arts Board, which is now also regulates professional boxing. Nate too. They regulate professional boxing in Wyoming now as well.
Let's rewind a minute though, because if you recall, we actually had the Florida card. It was supposed to be at an Indian reservation in
2016.
Miami. Was it 2017?
It was 2016. You're right. It was
June
12th. June 12th. 2016, and we actually had tickets on sale. Tickets were selling. We were going full force with it. We had the contract. We paid the deposit. Everything was set. And then, as always happens with bare knuckle fighting, or happened with bare knuckle fighting, someone tried to sabotage us, and the tribe called us up and said the fight can't happen.
When you talk about a punch in the gut, taking the wind out of your sails, I mean, that was the closest, besides 2011, which was kind of like a one-off on Indian Reservation. It wasn't really a brand. We just wanted to do it, right?
We weren't building a business at that time. That was almost like, I'm going to do this. And everybody said, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Let me just do it and see how it works out. And man, what a reception. It was unbelievable. Yeah. Really, just imagine trying to do something that everybody's saying you can't do, and then you get a chance to do it, and it has overwhelming success. It was unbelievable.
That's what dreams are made of.
It was unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm starting to get memories of that night. But then I remember the kid that directed that show. You and I went up to his hotel room that night, the night of that card, And he's like, yeah, I could show you, but it's it's going to be, I need to edit it, so I need to start editing. And you're like, my man, I've been waiting for this for 10 years. You're gonna play the fucking video. I remember that. He's like, I want to see it. I didn't get to see it. It was cool.
It was an
You guys still have
amazing
copies
night.
of that at all?
It's on YouTube. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was really truly unbelievable.
Actually,
I mean,
matter
it
of fact,
was-
it's going to be up on the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship YouTube page this week. We'll throw it out there.
yeah, that's a good one to throw out there. Yeah,
Yeah. Make
definitely.
sure you guys hit that subscribe button. /.
What do you say? Smash it.
Smash that subscribe button.
Bing, bing, bing.
Or Dave Feldman will punch you in the stomach.
And then we, so after that show, which was a great success, and we were like, not Joe Biden. No, who was?
John McCain.
John McCain, Senator John
Arizona.
McCain, called the
Rest in peace.
tribe
Yep.
the day before the fight and said, you can't do this fight. So understand that you're dealing with a tribe of Native Americans, the Fort McDowell Yavapai Indians. The Fort McDowell Yavapai Indians are the first Native Americans to get gambling or Native casinos legalized in America. So let me tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. It's an amazing story. So they had a bingo hall, and they put slot machines in.
This is all in Florida?
No, it's in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Gotcha, okay.
Actually, Fort McDowell, it's right outside. So they put these slot machines in, and they were doing great. They were doing unbelievable. They were the only ones in the country doing it, so they were doing unbelievable. The state came in with Mayflower moving trucks, and they surrounded the whole entire casino. They loaded up all the slot machines, and they attempted, and again I say they attempted to make their way off their property with no success. They were surrounded by all the Fort McDowell Yavapai Indians. They had a standoff for 3 days. They would not let them off their property.
I've never heard this before.
And then the governor at that time, and I don't know who it was, but the governor at that time flew in and signed a pact to allow Indian gaming. So when we're trying to do this bare knuckle fighting thing that nobody wanted anything to do with it, what a better partner than people that know how to stand up for themselves. And these people were unbelievable. So Senator John McCain calls on that Friday before the fight and says, you can't do the fight. And they said, why? And he said, well, it's not legal. It's not sanctioned. It's not regulated. And they said, well, it is legal. We're on sovereign territory. It's legal because we said it's legal. So we're doing the fight. And they hung up on him. And we did the fight. And I was like, these are the partners we want. It was
That's some balls
unbelievable.
right there.
It was just awesome.
Fort McDowell, don't they own the water supply of Phoenix?
They own a piece of the water supply. They own a section of which the 101, which is like I-95 around here, a section of 101 that the state pays them every month for. It's crazy. But you know what? They were
It's the least that we could do.
not only, so then we went on to do a lot of other fights there, and not only were they, they stood up and they were people of their word, but they became our friends. We actually flew them out here. We went to the beach in Sea Isle City with them.
Oh, really?
It
That's
was
cool.
crazy. They
That's
came out here.
awesome.
They sponsored a boxing match that we did. Had nothing to do with them. They just liked us, and we liked them, and they were great people and very gracious for everything we did. And we take our hat off because really, without them giving us that opportunity, then we never would even be here today.
That was Spectrum Boxing, right?
Spectrum, yeah.
Was that Jamie Campbell? Campbell and Butterbean?
No, that wasn't
Campbell and BKFC
Butterbean.
heavyweight.
That was Harry Yorgi versus, I can't remember who he fought, but he had a draw for the championship of the world.
Yeah, you're right.
And that was
Harry Yorgi, he was in Wyoming. He cornered Travis Thompson.
I believe that was the last boxing event ever at the Philadelphia Spectrum. And for those of you that don't know, the Philadelphia Spectrum is the infamous or famous arena that Rocky was filmed. A lot of the Rocky movies were filmed inside the Philadelphia Spectrum, and for us to be able to promote a professional boxing event there, it's amazing and historic.
Landmark. Definitely a landmark in the city of Philadelphia.
Then we tried to get this thing going again, and
What
doors
year,
slammed in our
what year
face.
would you, what year do you think we're at right now? From the fight?
From beginning of thinking about doing it,
No. So
we're in
after Arizona, you fly back home.
after
You had a
Arizona.
great show,
We are
great event.
in.
Reception's doing.
We're going into our 10th year right now. We're going into our 10th year. We're in our 10th year. 10 years.
What's the next steps? We do after that. After getting on that
After
high.
Arizona,
Yeah.
we're just trying to get it legalized in the state. I mean, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like we kind of knew the Indian reservations weren't going to be sustainable because of the government trying to interfere in it. And, I think they didn't want to do it again because of the the pressure from
Yeah,
the
the
state
problem
government.
with McCain.
That's problems.
But
And the other thing was pay-per-view. Pay-per-view wouldn't play it on an Indian reservation. They wanted a state sanction.
pay-per-view
That was
would
another
not, and that was actually some of our false starts, because we did a place to do the events after that, but we had nowhere to air it because the internet pay-per-view we weren't confident with because it crashed.
Yeah,
And
the
then
technology was as
we wanted to
interesting
be
back
on
then.
pay-per-view. We were like, look, if you're on televised pay-per-view, you finally made it as far as you're legal, you're sanctioned, you're real. And then 2018, after twisting the guy's arm, my main man, Brian Ricco, he said, I said, look, have faith in me and go to your contacts. He went to his contacts and they said, let's give it a shot as long as it's sanctioned and regulated. That was the big deal, because we could have done this on Native American reservations outside the country. People said, why don't you do it in Costa Rica? Do it in Mexico. Do it here. Do it there. Well, we could have, but nobody would have taken us seriously. Until we were actually legal and sanctioned and regulated by a state or government entity or regulatory body, nobody took us seriously. So we finally got it. We got the nod all the way up in 2018. I know I'm missing a lot of things, but we're going
Let's
to
talk
go
about
back.
some of the underground stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
the Bobby
people
Gunn,
want to hear about that.
YouTube fights and stuff like
These
that.
stories that are circulating around the internet of these backroom
So,
brawls, these underground
let's talk about how
fight
bare knuckle
clubs.
boxing even came about. Bare knuckle boxing came about. I was promoting fights in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I was actually doing fights out here. I was doing a lot of partnerships with my brother, who I don't really want to throw him under the bus, but it was like the last time I was like, all right, Damon, it's the last time you're going to screw me. So I'm going out west and I'm going to promote my own fights. So I promoted my own fights, and we were doing very, very successful. We were doing great crowds out there, and then I was doing a professional boxing match out there, and then Bobby Gunn had reached out to me, who I didn't really know. I heard of him before because I heard he drew a good crowd, and he reached out to me and he said,
And you thought he was actually Tommy Gunn from Rocky.
I did. He was like, hey, pal, can I get on your card? And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's talk. And we talked, and he goes, I'm going to sell 5,000 tickets. And I'm like, yeah, I heard this song and dance before. He's like, now give me this amount of money. I forget the amount of money. And I'm like, no, I'll tell you what I'll do, because I read through a million guys like this before. I said, I'll give you 50% of the 5,000 tickets you sell, which will be triple what you're asking for. He's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. No, I can't do that. I said, well, then you can't sell the tickets. Yeah, I can, but I need a guarantee. I'm like, nah, we're not interested. So he left. And like 15 minutes later, he called me. He's like, hey, my pal, you read right through me, man. I want to fight for you. He said, I'll take the deal. And he delivered. That place was packed with Bobby Gunn fans. It was unbelievably packed. It was unbelievably packed. And then Bobby and I, just hit it off, and we became friends, and we started talking a lot, and then I promoted another boxing match for him, and then I started to get to know him a little bit more and know about his being a traveler, his traveler heritage, the Irish travelers, Scottish travelers from overseas. And he started talking to me about bare knuckle fighting, and I was like, huh? What's that? Like, I know what it is, but bare knuckle fighting, really? He's like, yeah, so here's what they do, pal. Is they have family disputes, and what they do is this family will bet money, and this family will bet money, and they'll take two of their best up, and they'll fight, and the winner gets the money, and they end the family dispute. And I'm like, man, this thing's pretty cool, man. That sounds cool. Like, you bet on fighting with families, and you solve disputes at the same time. Pretty amazing. So I started researching it, and I was like, I think this is something we can pull off. And I went to Bobby, and I'm like, I'm going to promote one of these bare knuckle fights. Really, I'm really going to promote it. And he's like, it'll never happen, pal. You'll never get a sanction. And I was like, okay. So you found out my favorite word is never or no. Like, that's my favorite word. Say never to me or say no to me. So you can even ask my wife that too, because she said nope. But so what happened was I went to the casino, and they were like, yeah, sure, we'll do it, without even thinking about it, because they were so cool to us, great friends. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it. And then we started advertising it. And I started getting phone calls like, you can't do this, it's uncivilized, it's barbaric, it's this, it's that. So then I had to really school them on really what it was going to be. And I was trying to school them on something I didn't even know about. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. That's why I was like so nervous and so excited about doing it, because I didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling them, no, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I hope no one dies, please. Like, it was
The funny thing
so-
is, we always say that this is the kind of sport that has you on the edge of your seat, and I don't think anybody was on the edge of their seat more than you, or especially, I mean, even in Arizona,
It
not
was-
knowing what was going to happen.
It was nuts, man. And then I was I was the ring announcer. Unbelievable, man. Man, memories down there. So anyway, we did the fight. They allowed us to do it, and you know, credit to Bobby Gunn. He definitely put that idea in my head, and he's a great guy, and you know, he's an underground fighting legend, man. And then we went on, and like I said, we tried to get this legalized in other places to no avail. We were not able to do it, so we said, look, let's take this sport where it was, in the underground. It wasn't necessarily in. So just so you guys understand, although bare knuckle fighting is new now, it's not really new. It's the oldest combat sport around. But not only that, it happens all over the place. This happens. This underground bare knuckle fighting happens to this day all over the place. People are betting on underground fights. It's what they do. And we said, let's take it back down to underground. So we did, and we did these underground fights that.
Real quick, let's watch a quick clip of the Arizona card.
You really have to pick your shots and know where they're getting located. And as you can, Bobby Gunn hit him with a nice right hand. But I want to rewind to where he actually tapped him. I think he tapped him with a left hook to the head and then sunk that body, or left hook to the body. Yeah. See that? Rewind that one more. This is sunk the left hook to the body down, dropped his right hand, and turned that left hook over top, and ended up dropping Richie Stewart. He got up, and then he got knocked out at the end. But anyway, this was an amazing night that really, you know, lit the spark, or lit from a spark to the fire to get bare knuckle fighting going. It was actually Bobby Gunn fought a guy that they say was Jay-Z's bodyguard, and it was. How long did that fight go, Dave?
I got it right here, actually.
How long did that fight go?
I'm not sure.
10 minutes?
9 minutes, 37 seconds is the full video here.
It was a great fight. But what happened there is we were doing the fight. We didn't know that there were cameras in the room. So there were cameras, actually, security cameras in the room. As you can see right here, there were security cameras in the room. I don't think you're going to see what happens right here. But at the end of this fight, a 9-minute fight. At the end of this 9-minute fight, which was it was a really good fight, Bobby Gunn ended up winning by a knockout. And by that time, the owner of the building, we told him that we were filming a reality show there, and nothing gets realer than this.
That's reality. That's
It was
reality.
reality. We were filming a reality show. So what happened is the owner was looking through his surveillance cameras at home, and he called the police on us. So all the police rushed in the front door, and we all rushed out the back door, got into our cars, and left. Like, we just escaped by the skin of our
This is
teeth.
some Fight Club, Kimbo Slice.
Well, this is it. Like, this is where,
This is real.
this is what I said. Like, what I always said about bare knuckle, though, I always said it was the sound. Like, I always do this, even in the interviews now, I go like this. This is what gets you. That sound, you're like, wow. Even now, like Dave said, I'm on the edge of my seat. Even now today, these fights, I'm on the edge of my seat because that sound is like something you never heard before. That's what is so intriguing about bare knuckle. And that was one of our underground fights, as you guys saw. So we took risks. Look, I was a boxing and MMA promoter. I actually, Nate was my matchmaker back down there. Actually, then he matched some fights. Actually, just kidding. Yeah. Nate's my man. So while I was
Before
actually
that, some people don't know that much about you, Dave, and your background, your professional boxing background. So a lot of promoters are just promoters. They haven't gotten in the ring. They haven't thrown a punch or have gotten a punch thrown at them. So, you know, I'd go into that a little bit. Just a quick blurb, you know, because you're talking about body shots. You're talking about, you know, technique. It doesn't come from a more authoritative figure. So why would I take advice from, you know, just a Dana White? He's never been into a fight. You know, he might train MMA, but you know, how many fights have you been in? You know, and I think someone said that.
We need to get Dan Kelly up here.
I think someone said that, and I think that sparked a fight. You had to take your shirt off. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That was the part of the outside the lines piece that the people didn't see. Put it that way.
That was crazy. So yeah, so what happened is I was actually doing a one underground fight. One night we had the guys from England come over, Dekahegi.
Mm-hmm.
Did Dekahegi get killed? I think they murdered him.
Really?
And they murdered him.
He fought Oak Tree.
Did he fought Mark Oaktree Brown? But he was in he was coming out of England, and he was with these people over there, man. These guys and bad people, man. Really bad people. They ended up killing this guy, Decca Hagee, man. This guy was like a rock. He was built like a rock from head to toe. But anyway, I was there that night, and there was somebody that was with them or with one of the fighters, and you know, I was just kind of controlling the tempo and saying how things are going to go. And he said, "You keep talking. You keep talking. You want to fight?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "No, I'll fight you now." So I had to take my shirt off and, you know, be Macho Man Dave and go in there, and I ended up knocking the guy out with a body shot, like a minute or so. But he did give me a nice little shiner. He caught me with a jab on the way in, and I had a shiner for like 2 weeks. And I was like, dang. But you know what's fun? What's weird about fighters? Let me tell you what's weird about fighters, because I'm a fighter, as you know. Well, maybe you don't know, so I'll explain my background a little bit. I've been, my dad trained 7 world champions. My dad was a professional boxer. My mom was injured in a very bad accident at the age of 8 when I was 8 years old, and she wasn't really in our lives much more for a while. She went back to Oklahoma from where she was from, and at that time my dad was training a lot of fighters, and he moved in a lot of fighters into my house. Our house actually became a training camp, and before you know it, everybody's coming to our house for autographs because they're seeing these guys fight on NBC, on ABC. It was crazy. But
First White House in America.
It was crazy. Like it was
a trend.
Listen, reality shows. Reality shows don't have shit on this. Like my life was a walking reality show. My dad was out of his mind. It was crazy. Like everything that happened in my life. But we're not going into all that. We're going into just. I wanted to get you my fighting background.
Well, real quick, who were some of the names that lived there at one time? We had Frank Fletcher, Anthony Fletcher.
We had Frank the Animal Fletcher, who was one of the biggest TV fighters in the 1980s. He just fought everywhere, and everybody really knew him. Anthony Fletcher, who was actually Anthony Two Guns Fletcher, was an Olympic alternate. Just an unbelievable dude, man. This guy was unbelievable. Like he really tried to, when my dad wasn't there, be like a father figure to me, and he was an unbelievable guy. And man, he got into a situation where became a product of his environment. He was hustling drugs, and someone pulled a gun on him, and he ended up turning around and he shot the guy, and he killed the guy, and he's on death row right now. 2 guys that lived in my house growing up with me during my upbringing are now on death row. It's crazy. Like that's what I say. Like when, you know, I'm trying to build this business, and I've been in a lot of businesses, and I think I'm fairly successful at building businesses. I'm probably not the most successful at managing money, but I'm the most successful.
That's all.
I really take I take an idea and I run with it, and I probably try to make it the biggest that I've ever done. Even in this pandemic, as we're doing PPE equipment and stuff like that, and we want to be the biggest PPE supplier in the world. So we try to do everything we can do to be the best at what we can do. And you know, I think my upbringing, being around all those kind of people, and like I can deal with that guy. I can deal with the guy that's on death row. I can talk to the CEO of a company. I think I'm kind of pretty well rounded on there. My upbringing taught me a lot of things that way, and it taught me how to really, more than anything, being punched in my face and knowing what it's like. I think it taught me how to really deal with these fighters, how to understand where they're coming from, because I get where they're coming from. I get when they're, you know, when a lot of them act like assholes and when they do their thing and they don't know how to talk to you. But I get that some of that, I just let it go off my shoulder. But the others, I just can't. And, you know, we go nose to nose to this day. Like, you know, it's the fighter and me and the fighter and them. And I get where they're going from, but I also get there's boxers, fighters, good fighters are the most entitled individuals in the world. They think that they own everything. And some of them are worth a lot and some of them aren't. You know what I mean? There's A side, there's B side, there's prospects, there's opponents. There's a whole different thing with, you know, with fighting. But I feel like I can do pretty good at right now picking out guys that I want to work with. You know, some guys I don't want to work with, but you know what, they can fight their asses off and they give the fans what they want, so we keep them in there. But that's just a little background on what I've came up to. And then I became a professional boxer. And there she is telling me what to do again. Put the pen down, honey. I became a professional boxer. The weird thing about it is I've been in boxing literally since I was born. Two or 3 days after I was born, my dad was in the corner of Augie Pantelis in a crowd with helicopters flew on top of the Philadelphia Spectrum, packed wall to wall, like unbelievable.
Year
Literally,
was that?
I can't tell you that.
You almost got me. Almost got you.
But so, I've been in this since I've been in diapers, and it's crazy. It's crazy where the sport has taken me all around the world, fighting, coaching, managing, promoting. I went a lot of places I never would have went without fighting in my life.
Huge background, great resume, great fight in Arizona. Philadelphia, your hometown. It's making it so difficult to get bare knuckle fighting championship sanctioned in your hometown. Bringing so much, knowing so many fighters, being so entrenched in the game for such a long time. Like I said, it's a sound resume.
I don't want to sound entitled by any means. I really don't want to sound entitled, but I feel like my family, my dad, my brother promoted a lot of fights. He was a fighter, but my dad promoted a lot of fights and brought so many world champions through this city. And me, myself, I promoted over 300 events, 300 boxing and MMA events in the state of Pennsylvania. I think that's not in the sense of entitlement, but almost a sense of I feel like they owe me a chance.
Accomplishment.
They showed me
done a lot.
I went in there, I pitched the State Athletic Commission. Actually, David was there. We left the State Athletic Commission. Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission. We left there, and I remember calling Christina, I believe, my wife Christina now, and I was like, man, we did it. I was slapping David a high five in the car. I'm like, holy shit, we got Pennsylvania. This is unbelievable.
At that point, I think there were 5 board members that we had to present it. I know it was the Secretary of State. Right?
Secretary of State. Do you remember he walked over to me at the end of it and shook my hand?
I was going to say, everybody came up and shook your hand. I think, I'm drawing a blank. The referee turned commissioner.
Rudy Battle.
Rudy Battle came over, shook your hand. Greg Sir came over and shook your hand.
Tremendous presentation next day. Greg, what were your thoughts? Amazing, David. Great presentation. So I'm like, dude, slam dunk. We're in. Finally, I'm going to get a break here.
Yeah.
I see him at a fight at a weigh-in. I'm giving out bare knuckle hats to the fighters. I go, Greg, would you want one? He goes, no, and the commission turned you down. I'm like, what do you mean?
What year is this?
This is...
It was after
2000.
Wyoming.
No, it was before Wyoming.
Was it before Wyoming?
Yeah, 2000. It was 2018.
It was I remember it was at Sugar House Casino at a weigh-in for a boxing card we did.
It was 2017, the summer of 2017. We have actually 2 guys that helped me out a lot. We have Nate Shook here. He's now my matchmaker. We said he was my matchmaker for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1, but I ended up matching all the fights, so I became the matchmaker for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1. But Nate was there for me for a long time. We did a lot of things together for a long time. Say what's up, Nate.
How's it going?
All right. Then I have this guy who I forget where we first met, but I know that we hit it off great. You believed in what I was pitching you, and I really have to nod my head to you as giving me actually the credit to be able to be where I'm at today, because you were the one that actually reached out to Brian Pedersen and got him to give us the nod to say yes and go ahead with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1. Not only my commentator, my consultant that I bounce things off of, but I consider him a very, very dear friend, Sean Wheelock.
David, thank you. That really means a lot to me, and I feel the exact same way about you. And yeah, we did hit it off. Believe it or not, it was 2016 when you and I first started talking, and I believed in you from that first phone call. I knew that you caught lightning in a bottle, and you were going to make it happen. It just was going to take time, and it did take time. And I think it was almost 2 years to the month that we first started talking that we had BKFC 1 in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And of every event that I've worked in combat sports, and even going back to my soccer career and doing the World Cup, nothing will ever match the excitement, the energy, the passion, the emotion that I felt, that I think you felt, all of us felt on BKFC 1.
No, it was absolutely amazing. It was nothing will ever replace that feeling of satisfaction, triumph, just every emotion bottled into one. I mean, the anger leading up to it, the happiness when it completed. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1 is probably the best professional day of my entire life. It was an amazing day, and the best thing about it is I was surrounded by so many people that helped push us there, you know, that believed in us when everybody else was saying no to us. Everybody else was saying we were a joke and they were laughing at us. And then what happened? We were trending #1 on Twitter the night of June 2nd, 2018. So we actually, you know, we must have got someone's attention.
Yeah, we absolutely did. And I remember that first fight, and Arnold A.J. Adams, who wound up winning the heavyweight tournament, becoming our first BKFC heavyweight champion, and DJ Linderman. And I had seen Arnold Adams fight before. I'd never commentated him, but he's a Midwest guy, and I had seen him fight. And I had commentated in MMA DJ Linderman numerous times. So I knew the styles of fighting that they would bring in MMA, but there was this unknown quality. And that first punch to the face, bare-fisted, that still took me off guard. As much as I was ready for this, we'd been building up, we'd done all the prep, I knew the fighters, I had watched so many bare knuckle fights, legal and illegal and everything in between on YouTube and on Daily Motion. It was still a shocking occurrence, and I think both fighters were shocked. And the camaraderie that we all felt, even the fighters at BKFC 1 was unbelievable. It's pretty much unmatched, I think, in fighting history. You know, guys, and you guys all remember, we're coming up to each other. How did you train? Did you train in gloves? Were you using MMA gloves? Were you using boxing gloves, 8s or 10s or 16s? And sharing notes. There was rivalry, and they all wanted to smash each other's face in, and a lot of people did get their face smashed in, but there was that cool camaraderie. And then afterwards, even the guys who lost really knew that they were part of something special, and I definitely knew I was part of something special that night.
Well, you're very, very good friends and almost family with UFC founder Art Davie, who took us back to UFC 1 and the feeling he had. And, you know, I think that you said by talking to Art, that kind of feeling was the kind of feeling that we had there. I mean, I had a feeling like it was almost like we just accomplished the impossible. You know, so many people for so many years said there's no way you can get this done. You can't get it done. So many times, and we were able to pull it off, and not just pull it off, but I remember jumping up and down as a fan. I was slapping hands with my investors, like, yeah, we did it, we did this, it was unbelievable, it was great. And having the fans come up to me, and the fans going, this is unbelievable, this is the best sport I've ever seen, and just everything that about that night, and culminating in probably one of the best, bloodiest fights I've ever seen in my life to this day was, you know, Tony Lopez and Joey Beltran won, and Joey Beltran is now our current BKFC heavyweight champion of the world, and he made so many strides in this sport. But it was just an amazing event. But what I want to do is I want to ask you some questions that I never really asked you before about Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, because I know you were on my side, you were on my team, you were a big advocate, you were very influential in getting us approved. But, like, you know, what did you think of Bare Knuckle when I first pitched you to it? It's going to be one of the questions that I really want to know. But really what I know is, like, that day we were in there and you saw, because we built the model for the squared circle. We built it, and I remember sitting there with David the night before, and he flips up the laptop, and we're sitting on the bleachers, and we see this model that he built a year ago, and we look at the ring, and it was identical. Like, it was identical. We're like, how the hell did this just happen? We have the ring that we've been designing for a year, and that's exactly what it built. What was your first reaction when you actually saw the squared circle built? You know, what were your thoughts about that?
David, I remember that, and where my mind went to was the story Art Davie told me, that he never actually saw the first cage until the night before when they set it up at McNichols Arena in Denver. So that would have been November 11th, 1993 for UFC 1. That flashed into my head because Art told me it was almost an emotional experience. Forget almost, it was an emotional experience. I felt that too. It felt so real. Obviously, I knew it was going to happen. We were in Cheyenne, Wyoming. You and me had been in that building in Cheyenne 2 months earlier doing the walkthrough and meeting with the Wyoming Commission people. But when I saw that, it was like, this is it. It was really an emotional and even a cathartic experience to see that. It was so big. It was so impressive. I thought, this is big time. Now, on your first question, I knew that you were for real. You know, somewhere on this bookshelf behind me is a book that I purchased about 15 years ago when I was in England on the history of bare knuckle fighting. And I'd already been a fan of bare knuckle before then, and I became a much deeper fan of it. So I knew that somebody was going to do this. But when you and I got off of that first phone conversation, I thought David Feldman's the man who's going to do this. You know, it's just like you mentioned Art Davie, who really is like my surrogate father now. Art Davie was the man who could bring together mixed match fighting. He wasn't the first guy to have that idea, but he was the guy who could finally do it. And the same to you. David, Art Davie tells me all the time that David Feldman is living my life 25 years later. He had a dream, he had a vision, and he had undying passion, and he was going to get this done. People told Art Davie, you're going to disgrace the martial arts. This is dirty fighting. Chuck Norris turned him down as a commentator or even a brand ambassador because he said, is this legal? He thought that the police or the National Guard or someone was going to run in and shut down the event. And he had this undying passion, and that's what you have. So full credit to you. You didn't give up on this. You and me were on this journey for 2 years before BKFC 1. You were on this journey for a lot longer than before you and I even came together. That you saw this through, the outpouring of emotions, the fan response. I remember I never have my phone out when I'm commentating. It's often in my bag. But I turned on my phone afterwards, and people I hadn't heard from literally since high school were texting me going, that was insane. In the crowd that night was a guy who I had worked with in 2003 in Major League Soccer, and he had come to the event. I hadn't seen him at that point in what would that have been, 15 years, and he came out to the event. He lived in Wyoming and was so excited. It really is unmatched in my career. All the MMAs, all of the grapplings, all of the letways and Muay Thais and kickboxings and boxings I've done, nothing matches BKFC. And the really cool thing for me is that we built on that momentum. You know, just like Art Davie, UFC was never meant to be a one-off event. BKFC was never meant to be a one-off event. It was meant to be a franchise. And look where we are 2 years later.
It's crazy. I mean, absolutely everything that you stated there, you know, I stopped with an exclamation point. I mean, it was unbelievable, especially the one thing that you said. And it was something that you don't see. And I've been in boxing since I've been in diapers. I got into MMA in 2010 and promoted more fights in Pennsylvania than any other promoter. You know, I kind of jumped into this thing, and I know combat sports, and I know fighters, and I know everybody around it. And I've never in my life witnessed the camaraderie that I witnessed at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1. It was like everybody wanted to help each other. Rob was there. My man Rob, who did my marketing, who's sitting across from me now. He was, you know, we got our life threatened, and at the end of the night, I got served with a lawsuit by one of those guys in Wyoming. You know, one of the jealous guys, and Rob's like, "Come on!" He's like protecting me, like shielding me, like my bodyguard. Like, you gotta get out of this building. You gotta get out of this building. Someone's gonna kill you. Like, just get out of here. And it was unbelievable. Like everybody that was there and wanted to see us succeed. It was amazing. And you know, we had a plane charter, half a plane from England to come. I think we had 100 people from England that came over for that fight. It was an amazing experience. I mean, I got David Jr. here with me, and you know, he's been in with me since the beginning, since we actually just rewound.
Since diapers.
We just, yeah, since, you know, I changed his first diaper. I will take credit for that. I changed my son's first diaper. What I did is
Well, real quick, Sean, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Sean, I know you said something about Art Davie, and he never actually saw the octagon until he saw it set up.
Right.
I actually read the book. I believe you wrote it with him, with Art?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
I did.
I read the book, and one of the first lines of the book is, I don't know word for word, I read it about 4 or 5 years ago, but as he walks into the arena and he sees this thing, I guess I'll call it an octagon. I don't know if you remember that part of the book, but that's kind of like the feeling I personally got as we walked into the arena, because before, a lot of people don't know this either, that ring wasn't 100% built and completed and dressed up until about 1 a.m. the night before the fight. Nobody really knows that. The canvas, there was an issue with the canvas getting that over.
Nothing went smooth.
Nothing went smooth. They lost the corner pads at the airport. The corner pads and the rope covers were lost at the airport, at Denver Airport. We sent Mort, one of the guys that worked with us, we sent Mort down there to pick up the equipment, bring it over. But just from an image on my computer and some drawings that we did with Gary actually built the ring, and actually seeing it in real life, that was for me definitely the most surreal part of the entire weekend.
Yeah, and David, you say, or Dave Jr., you say surreal, and it was surreal, and it was ultra real at the same time, because we knew the event was going to happen. We knew that your dad's dream was coming to fruition. We were there. The fighters were there. We had the weigh-ins. We had the press conferences. People had bought the tickets. We were going to be sold out. We knew that it was going to happen, but there was still that validation once we saw the ring. And my reaction and every fighter's reaction was, wow, that's a big ring. And people still comment to me about that. That's a big ring. You know, we'll reference Art Davey again. Art Davey will tell you he did not design the octagon. It was two set designers who had worked a lot in Hollywood and on concerts, Jason Custon and Gregory Harrison. But the instructions Art Davey gave them time and time again was, this has to look like a new sport. This has to look like something other than what you've seen. So I don't want a wrestling mat. I don't want a boxing ring. This has to look like something that's our own. And I thought about that, and I still think 2 years later about our BKFC squared circle. You put that on, you know immediately before a fighter even gets into it that this is Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. It's already become iconic. You know, you're not going to see boxing or kickboxing or MMA. You're going to see bare knuckle, and specifically you're going to see BKFC. So full credit on the ring. It's huge. The canvas is stark with the way we set up the ropes, the shape, the catwalk around it. Everything about it, I think, is so iconic, and it really creates the brand for what we are.
So Dave, do you happen to have anything in that computer right now about the first ring that we designed? Remember the hexagon?
I think I do.
So the first ring was a hexagon that we designed, Sean. We wanted to be different, as we said, and we did the hexagon, and we looked at it, and we looked at it, and we were like, it looks great, but something's missing. It's just, I think you can, if you click by a TV station, we wanted it to be, if you click by, you had no mistake this was a different sport. And I thought with that hexagon ring, it could have been mistaken for MMA, because they did some MMA in a hexagon ring in the past. So we designed the squared circle, a circle ring, right? A circle ring that you're going to hold up these ropes. Well, how do the ropes hold up? How do they stay circle? And the first 19 times we tried it, they fell down and it flopped and nothing worked and nothing held up. And then, we brought Gary Grant in. David got Gary Grant in. Gary Grant was the guy that was setting up rings and cages for us for the events that we were doing down here in Philly. And his first design was a trampoline?
It was. That's how he got started, but even before that, we actually reached out to another major ring and cage manufacturer. They wanted to have 16 posts, and basically, because they kept saying you can't bend a rope, you can't round a rope,
right?
So it has to be straight rope. So in essence, it was going to be, I don't even know what you would call that, a double octagon. I mean, I don't even know what the word for that polygon
You don't know.
is.
You don't know what the word is for a
16-sided polygon. No, I'm sorry, I don't.
What kind of education do you have?
But and for a while we thought it might have to be that. But then, issue with that is, how do you see? If you're actually sitting there ringside, how do you see in if you have 16 posts? You can't. So it almost was that. And then luckily we met Gary. And one of the ideas I had was to bend PVC, and then Gary said someone's going to snap right through it, and that would have been actually good for TV. But luckily we didn't do that, and then the square circle was born.
And something that I love about it, and Dave, you showed me an early prototype, and we hadn't even talked about this, and I saw the prototype, and I knew immediately what it was from being such a fan of bare knuckle fighting history. We're seeing it right there on the screen, those two lines, the scratch lines. And so iconic with bare knuckle going back to the 1700s, the 1800s, the Broughton rules and the London prize ring rules. The rule sets would change a little bit, but the constant was that you had the scratch lines. And so many of my friends, most of whom are MMA fighters, pretty high-level guys, who ask me, can you give me Nate Shook's number? Can you give me the Feldman's number? I want to fight BKFC. They all tell me they love the line. And even if you don't know the historic precedent for this scratch line, towing the line, coming up the scratch, you see it. And again, that separates us out. We had our first legal bare knuckle fight in the state of Kansas. It was just a one-off, and it was in a boxing ring. But the promoter had the presence of mind to take glove tape, and he stripped down the tapes because he wanted to emulate, out of respect and out of honor of BKFC. And David, what you've done, that he wanted to have those scratch lines. I think that that's genius. Again, that differentiates our sport. that we see that people come up, they toe the line, and then the strategy. Who do you want to be as soon as you toe the line? Some fighters have said, I've already worked out the sequence in my head. I know what I want to do. Others, like my buddy Chris Lytle, my broadcast partner now, if you guys recall, when he made his BKFC debut on our second show, he actually did a little slide step off of the line, baiting in his opponent, which I thought was really clever. But that, again, is so iconic. Everything about it gives a look and a feel that, yes, we're a combat sport, but we're something different. We're rooted in history, but we're extremely modern at the same time.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with you on everything there. And by the way, that shape is a hexadecon. A 16-sided ring is a hexadecon. All right. I just wanted to throw that out there.
On that note, though, Sean, I mean, it's funny over the last couple of years how you see guys actually base their strategies off of the scratch lines. Like Jim Hours comes to mind. As soon as he gets started, boom, right off the line. And
Jim has actually told me in our... Sorry, go ahead.
As the sport's developing and as we're developed, the funny thing is, and you know, it's not just BKFC. Let's not forget that we didn't just start this organization called Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, which we did. We started a sport. Yes, sports has been around in the 1800s, but it hasn't been around since the 1800s. And we started this sport, and we have a resurgence of this sport, and it's catching fire. And like you said, John Carden, great guy from the state of Kansas, put on a single bare knuckle fight on that MMA card, and it went over extremely well with the fans in Kansas. And you could see, like, you know, they're catching on. This thing is catching on, and you know, whether we become the next UFC of bare knuckle fighting, or we were just there to pave the way. You know, it's historic that we are where we are, and we're able to give so many people different opportunities in fighting sports right now.
Well, I'll tell you something about that fight. And you mentioned John Carden, who's a huge admirer of you, David, and of BKFC. And again, he wanted to do nothing but show respect when he did the first legal bout in Kansas. That was at an indoor soccer facility. It was a house show. It was a non-televised show. It had a ring and a cage. It was a hybrid show, which we get a lot of in Kansas and in the Midwest. You had amateur fights, you had pro fights, you had MMA, you had gloved boxing, you had kickboxing. The very last fight of the night, there was something like 16 or 18 fights on the card, was bare knuckle. And I was concerned because I was afraid that people would leave. So often in house shows, as you guys well know, somebody comes to see their friend or their neighbor, or it's someone they went to school with. That fight's over, they watch a couple more fights and they leave. Nobody, and I mean nobody, left. Everybody stayed for the bare knuckle fight, and there was energy like there had not been any other time that night for the bare knuckle fight. It was phenomenal. And you're right, David, it's not just BKFC. You brought this historic sport back from the 1700s and the 1800s, and you put it in the modern day. And of course, you're going to get copycats. How many copycats have already come and gone? But it's simultaneous. You launch BKFC, but then you relaunch the sport of bare knuckle fighting.
No, absolutely, Sean. You know, it was, when we did the show in 2018, it was almost like the first show of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1 that we're talking about. It was like I had to get it done. I told everybody I was going to do it. I told everybody, and so many times did we have a false start. And I can't blame the people in my life, like my wife, even my son who was there, did everything for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1, was like, yeah, okay. You're doing this show? Yeah, okay. It's never going to happen. And then, you know, Brian Pedersen, take my hat off to that guy. I'll forever be in debt to him for giving us that break. Told us it's going to happen. We had some hiccups that it may happen, it may not happen. And he said, David, it's happening. Plan forward. It's 100% happening. I will guarantee you it happens. And it happened. And I don't, like I said, I think we could do 100 events if we get so blessed that Mike Tyson signs that dotted line for us, or we get a serious network deal, or we become the biggest thing out there. Nothing will ever take away from that first event.
Yeah, you know, something that stands out for me too is, you know, we finished the show. We all went out afterwards. I was hanging out a lot with the referees. Dan Mergliata's my buddy. I've known him for years from MMA. I've never seen Big Dan, and he's oftentimes someone I will get a post-fight drink with. I've never seen him so elated. Bill Clancy, who I knew from boxing, an A-list guy, was so excited. There was just this great energy.
I remember seeing Dan when he came in and walked into the arena and did the walkthrough with you. I remember his face when he saw the ring, and I think it was to the tone of like, holy shit, this is real. Like
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
really doing it up. It's not like in a bar or nightclub or something. This is a real thing. You know,
Yeah,
what's
we
really...
all-
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead.
No, we all have been to a million shows, and you walk into a show, and if the ring or the cage or the mat is small, it kind of deflates the atmosphere because it instantly feels small time. And when you walk in and you see a huge, impressive enclosure, be it a ring or a cage, and it's big and it's well built, and you can tell it's expensive, it elevates the show. And that was the feeling that we all had at BKFC 1 in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Nobody could discount how impressive that ring was. It was huge. The colors, the scheme, as you talked about, all the engineering marvels that you had to accomplish to get it to look the way it did. You know, Universal with the fighters, they all loved it. And through 2 years now, they still love it. It's so unique. It's so iconic. And most importantly, it works. It has the functionality and it completely works.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Sean. So let's talk a little bit about the future of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, because we're going to get into the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1 and where Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship is going from here. You know, you commentate Lethway, you commentate boxing, you commentate mixed martial arts, you commentate every type of combat sport there is out there. Karate,
If somebody's
combat.
punching somebody in the face, Sean's commentating it. Basically.
I'm there.
If I'll watch Fight Pass or YouTube videos of like old Pride fights and something like that. There's Sean.
There's Sean. What's your real gut? Not because you're on the team of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Where do you think Bare Knuckle Fighting, not just Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, where do you think Bare Knuckle Fighting as a sport is headed?
You know, 100%. You know me. I'm a guy who's all in or all out. There, you know, some people are a dimmer switch. They're kind of on or off. You guys all know me pretty well to know that if I'm in 100%. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be with this organization. This wouldn't be my number one professional priority, which it is, if I did not fully believe that we are the next big thing, not just in combat sports, but in sports in general. You know, sometimes the planets have to align. If Art Davie had tried to do the UFC 10 years earlier in the early 80s, I'm not sure societally it would have worked. And maybe if he had tried it 10 years later, he would have missed that window. I feel like, David, your timing was perfect. It could not have been better. There was a little bit of maybe a boredom with boxing and MMA that had crept in, and not picking on any promotions or promoters or organizations or fighters, but there was a little bit of a sameness. And one thing I was hearing for probably the past 6-7 years, as we led into BKFC 1, people started to complain to me, I miss that unknown factor, that X factor, that danger factor that I used to feel when I watched the early UFCs, when I used to watch Pride, or in boxing when Mike Tyson was fighting. I don't feel that anymore when I'm watching sports. And then you come along, David, and you bring that factor to where there's still that unknown. I remember the night before Malinaji Lobov, and I was interviewed on MMA Junkie Radio, and they asked me my feelings of the fight and how I saw it, and I said completely honestly, and I'm always completely honest, I said what intrigues me about this fight, I can't figure out how it's going to go. Now, whether I'm commentating bare knuckle or Letway or submission grappling, after I've spoken to both fighters, done my fighter meeting, I always do my homework, I've watched a ton of videos, I have an idea of how I think it might go. And I'm not in the prediction business, but I kind of get a sense of who might win or who might lose, and if they do, how they will do it. With Malinaji Lobov, I had no idea. And Antonio Tarver, Chris Lytle, we had no idea how it was going to play out. That was really exciting to me, not just as a commentator, but as a hardcore fight fan. So I'm going a very long way of answering your question, as I kind of have a tendency to do. But I think that
Sean,
this is
you do
absolutely...
not like to talk.
Yeah, I'm probably in the right profession being a commentator. You wouldn't want a commentator that gave you yes and no answers. But I am extremely, extremely big on the sport of bare knuckle, and specifically our organization, BKFC. The growth in 2 years is unprecedented. Even Art Davie didn't have this level of growth with the UFC. It is the next big thing. I am absolutely convinced of it. I'm staking my career on it.
Awesome.
Sean, when did you know that we were for real? Like, as far as getting this going, I know you said you knew that he would be the one to get it rolling. But when did you actually know we were for real and we were going to do a show?
Dave, it was the very first conversation I had with your dad because I knew that he was a fight guy. We'd never met, but I knew who he was. And I heard the vision, I heard the passion in his voice. And I'm a guy, I get a lot of crazy calls. And usually the calls go something like, we want you to raise $20 million and then we'll give you 10%. Or we want to give you equity in our promotion that doesn't exist. Or we want to put you on the board of directors, but we don't actually have a board of directors. So those are usually the calls that I get. When I talked to your dad, it was none of that. He laid out his vision. He told me what he wanted to do. We started talking about commentating, about broadcasting, about regulation. So literally from that first phone call, I knew. I'm a guy who loves passion. I'm a very passionate, enthusiastic person in everything that I do. I hate apathy. I hate people who are like, yeah, good enough is good enough, or we might do this. It was nothing but passion, Dave, coming from your father's voice. And that was when I knew that this was for real. It was going to happen.
Sure. That's great. And the entire time leading up to it, and like I think he said sometimes there were doubts, and after so many false starts, eventually you start getting kind of disappointed and unmotivated. When I really knew it was for real, when I really knew that we were actually going to do this thing and make a business out of it, was actually at the Philly tryouts. I think it was 2017. Sean, it was the first time I met you.
Yeah,
Davey
that's right.
was out, and when I saw all the fighters come out and everybody wearing bare knuckle and the ring and just everything about it, I was like, well, we might have something here. And
How about that day? The now former BKFC heavyweight champion of the world slept in a train station the night before the tryouts because he couldn't afford. It was either he had money to buy a train ticket or he had money for a hotel room, and he stayed in the train station, came out to the tryouts, was picked, and became the heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, that's just an amazing story, and I think that's really what bare knuckle fighting has the potential to really be about, is to give these guys opportunities, to give people, look, this sport isn't for everybody, and MMA is not for everybody, boxing is not for everybody, but this one especially, you have to be a little special to be in bare knuckle. You have to be a little special to want to get hit with the bare knuckle. You do. You really, truly do. It's not for the everyday fighter. It's not for the everyday boxer. It's not for the grappler. It's for the guy that wants to go in there and bang. And more than anything, the guy that's willing to give it all to give his family a better life. And I think that's the kind of people we're looking for. And I think that's the kind of people that are succeeding in this sport. These are the guys that really know that this is their chance and their opportunity to become a star, to make money and to give their family a better life. And I think that's why, when I can adapt to those guys, because that's really why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I think it can give me and my family a better life. And I think that I can get the opportunity to give these guys a better life. And by doing that, it just makes the effort, it makes the letdowns, it makes, the false starts, it makes everything so worth it. It makes all the naysayers that say this thing it'll never be a real sport. Well, 10 shows deep. We're negotiating a network deal right now. We're negotiating a contract with the most iconic sports figure in any sport. So I think we probably went over that hill.
Back to the tryouts real quick, though, and I'm looking at the poster from the first events hanging up here in our studio, and the amount of guys that came to those tryouts that made their way onto the card. You got Sam Shoemaker, who, and we're going to release this video on our YouTube sometime in the next couple of weeks. What did he say? I'm here to drink beer and knock people out, and I'm all out of beer.
I don't see no beer.
So he was there. I think it was Reggie there?
Yeah. Reggie.
Travis was there.
Yeah.
Travis was there. Reggie was there.
Reggie Barnett.
Arnold Adams was there.
Yep.
Sam Shoemaker was there. Lewis Rumsey was there.
Yes. And he went up fighting in the main event of that card.
Against Rico Rodriguez and did very well.
Former UFC heavyweight champion of the world, former Bellator heavyweight division winner, former world title challenger Bobby Gunn,
Johnny Bedford,
former
first card.
K1 kickboxing champion of the world Maurice Jackson. I mean, talk about a well-rounded school of heavyweights for that first tournament, man. That was amazing, and the fights followed up with it. We didn't have really any boring fights in that heavyweight division. It was great. It was an awesome first event. Sean, we're actually going to move on now. We're going to talk about some other things here. We really appreciate you coming on board here to talk about Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 1, to talk about how this started, how we met, and more importantly, where we're going from here. Because I don't think that there's really any way that we're going to derail off of these tracks to success right now. And we thank you for your loyalty, for your professionalism, and for your dedication to Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship.
Now, you made my day. I was having a great day already, and you absolutely made my day, David. So thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for the kind words. They truly mean a lot to me. And I will tell you sincerely, I cannot wait to get back to work for you. I am counting the days. I cannot wait to get back.
It's gonna be something a little different for us. We're looking forward to it as well. I think, not to keep this conversation going, but I think the one thing that Junior actually brought up that I'm looking forward to more than anything is I was very concerned about the ambiance, not having a crowd there, and how will it sound. And I'm still a little nervous about that. But I think more than anything, what we're going to hear with not having a crowd is this sound. That sound that I speak about all the time, you're going to hear that even louder this time. And I think that's going to give the fans that are watching at home an extra treat.
It's going to be spectacular. No, it's, we're used to crowds, but as a friend of mine told me yesterday, we're living the new normal right now. And maybe the new normal is, yeah, you do hear that, and I love that. So I cannot wait.
All right, Sean, thanks so much, man. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody. Sean. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Let's jump back to BKFC 1, the road to BKFC 1, everything that we were doing.
First thing I really remember about the whole week and the weekend, honestly, is the airport when we got there, and I think who was all with us? There's a picture somewhere. It's Nate. No, Nate wasn't there. You were living in South Carolina. Oh, yeah. It was Joe was there, Riz, you, me, Rob. Anybody else?
Joe, Riz, you, me, Rob.
I think that was it.
Someone else came. Damon. Did he come with us?
No, he came later.
Did Rodney?
Came home with us. Rodney might have. No.
Was Rodney in Bare Knuckle Fight Championship 1?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He's in everyone,
right? First met him, yeah. How about Damien? Damien Ramos.
He came later
and forgot his license.
Yeah. He was our shuttle driver. He didn't bring his license. He couldn't drive the shuttle.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. We all were taking pictures inside the plane.
Mm-hmm.
But the funniest thing was we had to twist Rob's arm to come because he didn't want to come.
He was drunk by the time the plane took off.
Really? And I kept going to him like, holy shit, it's going down. He was like, stop. But it was crazy, man. We got there. I remember we had the biggest line I've ever seen for rental cars. Remember that?
That was awful.
It was an awful line for rental cars
Over
in
an
Denver.
hour.
And then we drove up to Wyoming, and we get into this. We pass everything on the way up on that one highway. We get into Wyoming, and we see all cows and everything all on the side.
There was camels. There was camels on the side of the road.
What's a camel? I'm like,
you remember the camels on the side of the road?
Like, I didn't know there was a camel in Wyoming, and then we get in and get to the hotel.
I didn't know there were camels outside of Egypt. I thought that was like a desert, like Egyptian thing.
We stopped to take pictures of them on the way out.
Did you ever ride a camel in the Air Force, Nate?
No.
You never rode a camel?
No.
Come on, man.
Never rode a camel.
And so when did you come out, Nate? What day did you come out?
To the event?
No, come out.
What day did you come out to the event?
That Tuesday.
Oh, we came out Tuesday too, so we must have met up at the same.
Yeah, because I
Did you go
Tuesday.
by yourself?
Yeah.
Were you with Katie yet?
We were dating, yeah.
Okay.
Because I thought she was dating Louis Rumsey at the same time. And we're on the whole show.
Yes.
Can you imagine if we were live? Like you'd be arrested.
We could never do this live.
Never.
So Nate, seriously, let's talk about the first show. I remember going back and forth and trying to put the matches together, and I just kept going. Nate, we're like 60 days out. Nate, we're 45 days out. Nate, we're 15 days out. Did you make a match yet? No. Scratch that one. Anyway, Nate, remember leading up to it, and we kept trying to bounce each other back, who was going to fight on the card, because a lot of people were reaching out, and who was going to be the main event. I don't think we picked the main event until
3 or 4 days before we left.
Well, it was originally Joe Stripling.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he broke his hand.
I don't think that we actually picked Rico Rodriguez right away, did we? 'Cause-
Yeah, that was from the announcement. I think we did. Remember, we
Did
met
we?
up at the arena and we had the little photo shoot thing where he
Oh,
signed the
we did. He
I
contract.
signed-
thought it was going to be
Contract,
Beck though
yeah.
at first when we were talking.
Who?
I thought it was going to be
Beck,
Beck.
Beck. Oh yeah, how about Beck? Beck came out of nowhere, man. I don't even know where she came from on that one. I know that
I think
the
she
one
reached
guy-
out on somebody reached out on Twitter.
Yeah,
They hit her up on Twitter. She had just gotten cut by the UFC, and we picked her up. And she was, she was down.
I never really watched the UFC a lot. Like I watched the big fights, but I wasn't a guy that watched it a lot, so I didn't really know who she was. And
I heard of her.
man, like when I talked to her, her personality was great. Her accent was awesome. She was a good-looking chick, and she could fight. Man, that fight was unbelievable.
My favorite
She
part
did-
about her was actually the night in the hotel after the fight. We're all in the hotel lobby drinking. She ordered, I think, 2 pizzas.
And she goes to try to fuck me up.
Yeah, she tried to tackle
throw
you.
me down. She was awesome, man. But she could fight, man. That
Absolutely.
women's fight, I mean, look, take nothing away from Tony Lopez and Joey Beltran. It was one hell of a fight. But my favorite fight was Beck Rawlings versus Alma Garcia.
Let's go down the fight card. This was the official order. Leading off, Arnold Adams and DJ Linderman. It was a tournament fight.
I remember sitting in the chair next to you, and I think I kept tapping your leg like a million times, like, what the fuck's gonna happen?
So actually, it wasn't me, and I'm going to tell you why it wasn't me. I was stuck at the door. I missed the first fight, and it's something I'm always going to regret. I actually missed the first fight.
You?
No, I didn't get
I
out
think
there.
it was Joe. You were hanging with Joe. You were sitting next to Joe. Or
I just kept tapping, being like, what the fuck? And then the bell rang, and you know, well, they towed the line, and the bell rang, and then you heard the first, and I was like,
Was it a second round knockout? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Was it
second
a cut
round.
or was it a knockout?
it was a
Cut,
swollen
2
face.
minutes.
Swollen face.
Right. So I remember coming out. I just missed the fight. I come over to sit down. There's no seats. I come over to sit down, and I say, "How was the first fight? How was it?" And the guy was like, "No, it was the first freaking fight. How was it?" And you were like, "It was fucking amazing. It was everything I fucking said it was gonna be."
I remember,
awesome.
man. That was crazy. Well, who was the second fighter tonight?
Esteban Payan, Omar Avilar.
So Esteban was a guy that, you know, I talked to him in Arizona. He was brought up by a girl I knew out there who was into boxing, Amy Sego, and she brought Esteban in, and he came out, and I mean, he was like a gangster, and you know, obviously that night I liked the gangster theme. I was like, he was like the guy. He's like, look, I just want to hurt somebody. He fought really cheap. And he came out and he did his thing. And Omar Avilar was another guy who talked about, he had like 60 pro fights.
Well,
And
he
told
said he
me-
wanted to fight for free, right?
Yeah,
Was that the guy?
He said he
Yeah.
would fight for free.
Yeah.
And he came out and he, you know, very disappointing with him. I mean, but
He was overweight.
Esteban did his thing. He came in overweight. I mean, that's the thing that it pissed me off the most about that is because, like, we over-prepared, and this is like an opportunity to be in the center of attention right now. And you come in 6 pounds overweight when
After
you
all
told
the
me
shit
how
he
you're going to
talked.
kill this guy. And then Esteban went out and just blasted him out, and it was really cool. And
Here
it
he
was
is.
actually
Here's Omar up on the screen.
He looks a little chubby.
What was the fight? Was it 55?
55.
And we came in at 68 or
61,
something like
62.
that? Is it?
Well, he came in heavier, and then we just
Yeah,
gave
he
him a
had
little
to cut
extra
more.
money. And I just liked Esteban's everything about him. I actually got him as a feature on the Vice documentary.
You did, yeah.
He was a feature. I mean, they featured him, and you know they liked him, and he came out and did his thing. And then
He had a big height advantage, too. I didn't realize that.
Hey, he looked good.
He did.
Fight
Fight number 3 was Maurice Jackson, Dale Soapy tournament fight.
So Dale Soapy is a guy, Hawaiian, out of Arizona, who actually fought for me. Another Arizona story, fought for me at the Bad Boy Fights in Arizona, and I was like, this dude can fight. And then we didn't talk for a while, and then we started talking to each other again, and I saw that he was a pro MMA fighter, and he was doing good. And I reached out to him, and he's like, I'm in. And then I told him he's fighting Maurice Jackson. He's like, I don't know. I'm very good friends with him.
Did they live together at one point?
Yeah, they were very good friends. And I said, well, look, you know, this is business. So if you want in on this opportunity, you're fighting him. And he said, I'll take it. And Maurice said, I'll take it. And they did it. And
Maurice just towered over him, though. And I
Maurice?
always remember that punch that kind of sent Dale
wasn't
through the...
that a straight
first and
right hand, I
second-
think?
Yeah, sent him through the first and second rope. I think that's actually the first action I really got to sit back and kind of watch because we were working the entire time. I'm checking Twitter and everything else.
But I mean, Dale Soapy's a tough dude, man.
He is.
Tough dude.
And he never says no to a fight.
Even more recently, he fought Juan Torres. What was it, bare knuckle 7?
He won. Did he win or draw?
No, he won.
He
that
won.
one.
He won the fight on a week's notice.
Yeah,
something
it's
like that.
around
It's
7
crazy.
days notice.
You know what's funny about short notice fights a lot? I think, like, I did an exhibition once with this guy, Yusef Mack, a boxing exhibition, literally on like about 10 minutes notice.
At the Lagoon.
And I did like, it was my best performance ever. I
Well,
think
so
I had
that's-
no pressure on me at all. I just say, all right, screw it, I'll do it. I jump in there and I did it. And I remember even Greg Serb, my buddy, said to me, he's like, man, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. So he took that fight on short notice.
And Maurice, he went up winning, correct? Yeah, right.
Maurice ended up winning. That was in the quarterfinal of the heavyweight tournament.
Yep.
And then he came out and fought
Sam
Shoemaker.
Shoemaker.
He fought Shoemaker, yeah. He fought Shoemaker, and that was a toss-up fight.
And
And
split decision, I believe.
anybody could have won. Who was in the fourth fight?
Next fight was Reggie Barnett, Travis Thompson.
Oh, man. Two of my favorite guys, really. Just two of my favorite people. Two very good people. Reggie had a lot of stuff going on in his growing up and his background. Went to jail for some things. Came out. Great father, good husband, hard worker, and can fight, dude. Dude can fight.
So both of them are probably two of the most respectful guys on the roster. I mean, they both show up. They're very cordial. They don't talk a lot of shit.
And we talked about, just rewind, man, we talked about jumping off the line, and that was the first guy that ever jumped off the line. It was Reggie.
He did.
And he caught Travis. But I mean, Travis has, a heart of steel and a
Chin of steel, too.
steel. I mean, the guy's just unbelievable. So he always wants to fight.
There it
Always
is.
respectful. Always nice. And couldn't have been two better guys in that ring. And it was a great fight for us. It was a great fight. I remember I was like, Travis, you're the face of the organization. He had a swollen face. I said, you're the face of the organization. He's like, thanks. I said, yeah, your busted up face went viral.
And it's funny, you said it earlier, but even just looking at Travis too, I mean, win or lose, I think everybody was just happy to be a part of it. They were all...
Yeah, but you know what, man? Travis came back and he came to fight.
did.
And he always... One thing about Travis, this kid comes to fight, man. He will fight whoever, whenever. Doesn't really ask about money. And he comes out there and fights. But you're right, man. Like, the humbleness was really... Like, everybody out there.
Well, the other thing about Travis, I don't think he even really asks who most of the time. You say, Trav, you're fighting next weekend. All right, good. Let me know where it is.
Yeah. That fight, too, was one of the first ones I remember where it was actually speed. Because the fights before that, there wasn't anyone really quick. Everyone was powerful, but not really fast. Reggie came out there and showed people you can be fast and precise with your punches and really dominate without knocking a person out. Like,
I feel like that's the fight that kind of made us say, let's do the 135 tournament. And that, and then and the next one, which was Johnny Bedford and Nick Mamalis.
That's the next fighter tonight.
It was the next fight. Yeah, Nick Mamalis was a local Wyoming guy. Johnny Bedford,
The
obviously.
local Wyoming guy, also former Bellator fighter. Okay. He fought everywhere. How many fights did he have? He had a lot of fights. Nick Mamalis fought. Everybody knew Nick Mamalis. And he came out, and Johnny Bedford, who, again, I never heard of that much. Wasn't a huge UFC watcher, but Johnny Bedford, man, he looked sensational in that fight. He ended up knocking out Mamalis and going on to be one of our two undefeated fighters. Is there more undefeated fighters?
more. Joe
Yeah,
Riggs,
there's a few.
Jim, Johnny.
Well, Jim and Johnny. Who else?
Joe Riggs.
Joe's undefeated?
That doesn't have
It's
a
a
loss.
draw, right?
It's a draw.
Yeah.
But the thing about Johnny, too, is when I reached out to Johnny, his first professional mixed martial arts fight was a card I matchmade. So we saw him and we knew that
Wait a second. Let's go back. Was that
Virginia.
was Richmond, Virginia?
It was Richmond. He fought Chino Duran.
This is crazy. So Damon, if people don't know, my brother, my estranged brother, Damon Feldman, he promoted a show in 2006,
September 23rd, 2006.
Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia.
He had an investor from Chicago, a guy that was into like race cars and just like, I don't know, midgets and really weird stuff, because he did the first ever, you matchmake the first ever legally sanctioned and regulated midget MMA fight.
Yep.
That was the night that Johnny Bedford fought on that
It
card.
was.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, what, 12 years,
12
and he's fighting
years.
for us in bare knuckle fighting championship. That's crazy.
And now he's our
So let's just-
undefeated champion.
Just to talk about that for a second, 'cause it had nothing to do with what we're doing here, but that midget MMA fight was unbelievable. That was an unbelievable fight.
We were talking earlier about Fort McDowell Casino and the bare knuckle fight we did there. You remember the midget wrestling fight that was on there? We kind of helped promote before all this went down. I remember it was one of the largest crowds in one room I've ever seen. I think they turned 500-600 people away at the door.
Man, it was
that night.
crazy. It was crazy, but
Toad versus the POD. The
who else fought on that card? Anybody that we know? Bobby Flavors?
Did Damon
Bobby
fight on that card, or
Favors.
was it?
No.
Okay.
No, Bobby Favors fought Mike Williams.
Boyce Gracie was there in attendance, remember?
Yeah.
Boyce was there.
Boyce was
Who
there.
was he with? Who else was there? Wasn't there another star? Wasn't one of the girls, was Pamela Anderson? Somebody was there.
Was Carmen Electra?
Carmen Electra, I
Was
think.
that it?
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy, man. That's crazy. And Johnny Bedford fought on that card. And here he is, our undisputed 135-pound,
Undefeated.
undisputed 135-pound champion, man. So we'll see what's going to happen from Johnny in the future. Who was the next fight?
Bobby Gunn and Ireneo Bieto Costa Jr.
Bobby Gunn, man. I take my hat off to that guy. A very good friend of mine and someone that, actually got me turned into thinking about bare knuckle, talking to me about his heritage. Did a lot of underground fights with him. We fought Thomas Adamak for the Cruiserweight Championship of the World together. Fought Glenn Johnson, fought Roy Jones, fought everybody with that guy. I mean, we did a lot of things together, Bobby Gunn and I, and he fought a guy named Ireneo Costa?
Ireneo Bieto Costa Jr.
Ireneo Bieto Costa Jr., who, this is, a lot of people think that it was that the guy just laid down, but people don't know, being on the receiving end of Bobby Gunn's punches, what it feels like. And I mean, he caught the guy with a really nice punch and a glancing punch on the head. But the guy also, the one thing I will say about Costa, I don't think he was 100% going into that fight. I think he wanted to be, but there was something wrong with his foot, and he was having a hard time walking, if you remember.
Yeah. Looks
So,
like it anyway.
but Bobby Gunn went out and he did his thing. He tried and he did his thing. He lived up to his legend status that night.
Next fight, Eric Prindle, Sam Shoemaker. We all know how that went.
So
Eric Prindle,
let me tell you a little something about Eric Prindle. Eric Prindle is like, 265 pounds of shredded muscle.
rock solid.
He was an Olympic boxer. I'm not an Olympic boxer. U.S. Army boxer. He was the Bellator tournament, heavyweight tournament winner. I mean, the guy just has muscle on top of muscle, power on top of power. And Sam Shoemaker came out there. He was from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri.
I'll tell you what, if you asked 10 people in the crowd who they thought was going to win that fight after the tail of the tape, probably 10 of them would have said Eric Prindle.
You know what's funny though? We always talk about we're going to build a star, right? And before that show, I said Sam Shoemaker can be our star.
Could be.
And we put him in against a guy who can fight, but he was at the tail end of his career, and when you get hit with an overhand right, you know what happens most of the time.
It's funny, we looked at Shoemaker, we talked earlier, he came to the tryouts. He had a personality, and he had we had a punch meter. And
Dave, what was his saying at the tryouts?
I like to knock people out and drink a lot of beer, and I'm all out of beer. Something like that. But so when we do the tryouts, and we've done a few now around the country, we bring the punch meter out. And that was actually the first time we used the punch meter. And we actually had to bolt it onto the concrete wall, hooked up on my computer, whole process. And everybody's coming up, everybody's hitting like 800, 900. A couple guys got a little higher. Travis Thompson, actually, he was for a 135-pound fighter, he was up at like 900 or something. Shoemaker came in with 1,600 pounds of pressure or something like that. And I'll tell you what, that video of Eric Prindle, 1,600 pounds of pressure was right on his chin during that fight.
Was that per square inch?
Yes. Yep, pounds per square inch.
Ultimately, Sam Shoemaker really just stretched Eric Prindle. And let me say again about how nice Eric Prindle was. Eric Prindle got knocked out, came to get his pay after the fight as we were all sitting around really elated, came up to us and said, hey guys, you need any help cleaning it up, just let me know. And I was like, what a nice dude. Like the nicest dude you'll ever meet. Eric Prindle is just a really good dude. So, and that
might be seeing him back in the ring soon.
Yeah, definitely. That was the beginning of Sam Shoemaker, and he went on to fight for the heavyweight championship.
How were you feeling at that time? At that moment, so we're 7 fights in? How were you feeling?
I think at that moment, that was before Tony Lopez fight.
Yeah, that was right before.
And before the girl fight?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, this
Nervous?
is unbelievable. This is what we needed. No, we needed a knockout. No, I loved it. I loved it because we had good fights and we needed a knockout.
But that
And then what came next? Nobody was expecting that because we needed that kind of fight. And what was the next fighter then?
it was Beck versus Alma Garcia. Beck Rawlings.
Beck versus Beck, who I never really saw fight before. Alma, I never saw fight before, but I did talk to her manager, Jim. Can't remember his last name this time, but he actually knew my father from fighting and training guys. So we got to talk for a while and reminisce a little bit. He told me this girl would come to fight, and she came to fight. I mean, that was a great, great fight. But again, that was my moment where I'm a boxer, right? And I've been in boxing my whole life, where I said, there's no way an MMA fighter can beat a boxer in this kind of fight. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. Because I think, number one, getting hit with the knuckle, but number two, the thing that Beck specialized in that fight
clinching.
was clinching and grabbing her behind the head, and the girl didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do because you can't do it in boxing, but you can do it in bare knuckle fighting.
Did we see any other fighters really do that though prior to that match?
That
or was that
night?
the first match?
No,
Yeah.
that night I don't think so.
No.
I don't. Even after that night, I don't think anybody really did it.
So do you think that was a combination of why the crowd got so excited for that fight? One, it was the first women's fight.
Well, you know what? It was
It was just
confusing though
nonstop.
because we didn't see it much. People in the crowd. I mean, I even watched some. I saw some social media comments today from that fight, and they said, "Why was that girl grabbing the back of her head?" And
Antonio
Tarver goes, "She's grabbing the back of her head, and I don't know if that's even legal." And we're like, "It is legal, so everybody's got to."
Yeah, we just let her roll.
So it was great, man. That was a fantastic fight, and
So that's actually the time you're jumping up and down. I'm sitting there with you. You're jumping up and down. This is what I was talking about. This is what I was saying. I told everybody this is what I was saying. That was the moment.
I mean, that's when you knew like how the passion I had for it. But
And that's why I'm monitoring Twitter all night. It's starting off slow. People are saying they're watching it. It was a good night for us to do the first card because there was no UFC, no Bellator. We were the only combat sport on that night.
Yeah.
And it was new. We got a ton of press, probably the most press we've gotten, maybe besides the Balinaji fight. But it was just a great night to do it. And I kind of felt like all eyes were on us in the combat sports world. And as I'm monitoring Twitter all night, you know, the Shoemaker knockout got some people talking, but when Beck came on, and those exchanges with them, that really got people really talking on Twitter.
so since you were monitoring it, when did it blow?
Well,
Was
it
that
blew on the
fight?
next fight, but let's talk about the lead into that fight. So the next scheduled fight was the main event, which was Rico Rodriguez and Louis Rumsey. And honestly, probably had there not been a Shoemaker knockout, this next fight wouldn't have been on TV.
Absolutely.
And that's Joey Beltran and Tony Lopez, and it's what we call in the industry a swing bout. And that means, for people that don't know, actually, why don't you explain it? You probably know a little.
So what a swing bout is there's a scheduled amount of fights that are allotted in the TV time. So for this one, it was a 3-hour broadcast, but we had our intros, we had our lead in, our lead out. So there was a certain amount of time, and the timing wasn't going to allow for this fight to be on. And I remember, Nate, you coming to me and going, Joey Beltran and Tony Lopez are going to be a swing bout. And I was like, huh? And you're like, yeah, the producer said it won't work. And I said, what are you talking about? Get this fight on. These are gangsters. These guys have to be on TV. And you went back and you're like, all right, we're going to do them as a swing bout. And I'm like, they have to make TV. And we got lucky, and we had probably one of the...
Well, we kind of bet on ourselves in a way because we bet that there were going to be knockouts. In this sport, we bet there were going to be knockouts and there was going to be enough time in the window to have that fight. And, you know, luckily
We got lucky. But
between
this
the Bobby
was...
Gunn fight, the Shoemaker fight.
This
around
one
that time.
actually started out slow, too. Remember the first round? And I'm like, what's going on with these guys? I think I even said to you, you told me, what happened to these guys? And I'm like, fine.
Well, we actually kind of had an issue with the weigh-in, too, because they wanted to be a tournament fight. So there was some kind of confusion. It was supposed to be a tournament fight.
Right.
It wound up not being a tournament fight. And then, there wound up being some... there wound up being an injury or something like that, and they wound up I think the winner wound up advancing into the tournament.
So the confusion was we had the 5 bouts at the time, and I'm not sure if the main event or if another bout was being talked about at the time. for being in a tournament. And then when we got these two guys on, yeah, I mean, it was a fight that was phenomenal. But yeah, they
I'll never forget him yelling, "We gotta have that fight on TV. These guys are gangsters."
So
was the best.
well, with that, whoever was going to be doing the backstage ended up not making it to Wyoming. So they walked up to me a half hour before the show and they're like, "Hey, can you handle the back?" And I was like, "Yeah, like give me a timesheet." So they gave me a timesheet, and literally it said, "By this mark, you know, if we get to this point, you have to walk the next fight." And when I came up to it, we had 38 seconds. So I came right out to you. I was like, at the time we had like 50 seconds. We got 50 seconds. You're like, walk them. I was like, cool. I walk them, and you know, someone was in my ear like, "Why are you walking them? There's only 38 seconds." I was like, "Oh, you know, it could come back on you if it was a bad choice." But it turned out being a great decision
Yeah,
we
man.
made.
There was another fight on the card that was supposed to happen, and I think that somebody missed weight, or I think it was the Jorge Gonzalez fight. He was supposed to fight. I forget what happened to his gun.
Did both guys show up?
No,
Or one guy?
One guy didn't show
A
up.
little Oregon Gonzalez?
Yeah, he was there, and then we put him on the next.
You're right. He was supposed to fight
I think it's Chris
this
Harris.
guy Desmond Johnson or something. I forget. But yeah, no,
Yeah, they were supposed
I
to be
remember
in
that.
the
But so that fight, that's really when Twitter went on fire, right?
Yeah, that was. I remember seeing one tweet. It was somebody pulled a screen grab and made a GIF of Tony Lopez with blood all over his hair, like pulling his hair back. And then they said Tony Lopez lost the fight but won my heart. And that's when really people started retweeting that, and a lot of big UFC fighters. I forget some of their names, but a lot of guys were commenting on it and following us through the night at that point.
That was crazy, man. That was an unbelievable fight, and I remember like jumping up and down as a fan and being like, "That's what this is all about." Because look
at
they
the
were
crowd.
both busted up, but none of them took really serious heavy shots. They just took a cumulative amount of shots, but nothing real hard.
Yeah.
So they never really got wobbled and everything like that. So that was a great fight. Then what was next? The
The
main
main
event.
event, yeah. Rico Rodriguez, Louis Rumsey.
And the main event was former UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Rico Rodriguez, fighting a local MMA fighter from here in Pennsylvania, Louis Rumsey. He came to fight, man. I thought he was in all honesty, I thought he was gonna let go a little more. He was a little
Gun shy.
leery on what was happening. I guess because of the name Rico Rodriguez, he wasn't really sure what was going to happen. And in all honesty, they both came to fight, but that fight was a little lackluster. But
I can't
had
imagine
we
that.
not had Tony Lopez, Beck Rawlings, and the Shoemaker knockout, ending with the main event like that, it wouldn't have been great. That was okay because we had all those other great fights. And
Tell you
I
what,
just
in
remember-
the 1 or 2 months leading up to the fight, I remember sitting next to you as you were doing a million interviews. I actually got sick of your voice at one point because I heard you say the same story over and over and over again. But everybody asked you, how do you judge success? And I remember you always said,
Let's not talk about
it's
that.
not about... Say it. You got it.
They always did it. They said, how do you judge if this first event is a success? And I said, it's not about the tickets. It's not about the gate receipts. It's not about the pay-per-view buys. It's about waking up on Sunday morning and looking at social media and seeing the press clippings and seeing what the media is saying. And that's a success. And you know what? We woke up Sunday morning and everybody was praising us. And so we had a success.
That was the high of all highs. I remember waking up in my hotel. Well, actually, I was woken up because...
Did we wake up? Did we even sleep?
I didn't. I don't know if you did. I didn't sleep because Antonio Tarver changed his flight without telling anybody, and he was on the shuttle schedule. Cheyenne's about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes from Denver Airport, and we had a set shuttle schedule when everybody had to leave. And Tarver changed his flight, so and I think he brought somebody with him, so he flew somebody in. I didn't have a ride for him. I'm on my Uber. I'm on my iPad and my phone. I'm trying to get Uber, Lyft. I can't get a ride for him. I actually called Rob. I woke Rob up, and I was like, Rob, I need you to drive Antonio Tarver to the airport. He got up. I went out at literally after my probably 5th attempt at Lyft, I got a driver and got him there. But so that was I think 4 a.m. So no, I didn't really sleep.
It's funny, man, because Wyoming is a pretty big state. It is, and is it the least populated state in the country? I think it is.
Per
Not sure.
per
Per
mile or
capita,
something?
it
Yeah,
absolutely
something like
is.
that.
But yeah, it's crazy. But what were we talking about? You were talking about.
Louis Rumsey.
Yeah.
Just dealing with Louis, I mean, I can't imagine what he was thinking. He went from fighting on a local scene against some decent names in the local area to headlining the first ever legal sanctioned regulated bare knuckle event against a former UFC
Yeah.
Do you
heavyweight
remember
champion.
what's his trainer's name?
He was
John Pale. So
he was such an ass, and then
Always
he
was
turned
an
out to
asshole.
be. He's like my best friend now. He's like
Yeah.
my best friend.
he
now.
was, but even dealing with him with MMA when I was matchmaking MMA for a while.
Yeah.
It was always so difficult. He was always mad, all that stuff. And I think until he got there and he saw the press conference and the weigh-in and like what this really was, I think he actually apologized to you.
He did. He said, man, I had no idea what this was about, man. I'm sorry. And I said, look, man, it's cool, man. I said, it's cool. Just, understand what we're building. We're building something here. And you know what? After that fight, how many fighters tried to fight for us?
Non-stop. I mean,
Like,
my
it was
phone was going.
crazy.
Social media is
Website went
crazy.
nuts. Yeah.
And we were like, do we come back here? And then John Lewis called me. I remember he called me Wednesday of that week.
Tuesday. I remember it was
Tuesday?
Yeah, following Tuesday.
He said, no, Wednesday of that week.
Oh, yeah.
And he texted me, he said, I'm going to be watching you. And if things go well, we'll talk. And I said, things are going to go well, so when do you want to talk? And he called me on Tuesday, and he's like, look, we're in. I'm like, all right, great.
The following Tuesday, I remember we sent him the rules. We sent the rules
And
for
so that second one, August 20th,
25th.
August 25th, 2018, Biloxi, Mississippi, BKFC 2, man. But
Back to John Powell for a minute, though. I remember when we were doing the, obviously the first show, we rented a hockey facility that was used for kids' birthday parties and roller hockey, and so I think different things like that. It was basically a roller skating rink. There's moon bounces and stuff set up over in the snack bar. But I remember we're responsible for setting chairs up ourselves. I don't know if we knew that or not. We didn't really care. That is what it was. Between everybody from me to you to John Powell's helping us set chairs. I remember him helping us set chairs.
Sliding on.
Yeah, we were sliding across the thing. Riz was there helping. Like everybody was eager just to pitch in and just to be a part of it. I do remember that, and I remember. We actually had a fire marshal issue at one point because we had too many people in the arena at one time. That's the other thing we kind of missed here, the line to get into the building. It was unbelievable, and we were we had a feeling that we were going to do good with ticket sales, but I don't know how. Going into it, the online sales weren't that strong. The walk up, holy shit!
crazy. The rack was literally down the main drag.
Yeah, I think though too. Even though it was a city, it's not a huge city. 70,000 people there. You have a military installation not that far away, so people weren't buying early. But once they knew what was happening, and we had people downtown eating and socializing.
Don't forget, in our heads, we knew what it was.
Oh, yeah.
We knew we were building. But how do you advertise to somebody? Because you didn't have any footage to show them.
Yeah.
That was the
telling
challenge.
them it's bare knuckle fighting, but how do you market this the right way? But finally being able to do interviews, talk to people around town, it was unbelievable. I remember Brian going, hey Dave, can I have this amount of tickets? And he's like, Dave, can I have this amount of tickets? Can I have this amount I mean, he wanted to pay for them. That's not what I'm saying, but he was like, everybody wants to come, everybody wants to come, everybody wants to come, and they came. And we're definitely going back to Cheyenne without a doubt. I mean, I just want to be able to go there when we can do a crowd.
Tell you what, I mean, at least for me in my heart, Cheyenne always has a place in my heart.
That's
Just from the second even from the second that we pulled in there, and you were there before. Were you?
No.
I was never there before. So I'm pulling into town. Actually, we rented two, what's those Chevy? Suburbans. Rented two Suburbans. And everybody jumped in one, and I'm by myself in the other one. So everybody's in one car, I'm by myself in the other SUV. I'm pulling into town, and I remember seeing the big Cowboy Liquor sign, and I was like, where the hell are we? It was like those little side of the road
we drove
hotels.
by on the sign in front of the ice arena, and it said like bare knuckle fight.
Yeah.
Or not fight, or something like bare knuckle.
Bare
It didn't have
knuckles.
the whole
I think it was
thing.
just bare
Yeah.
knuckles.
Bare
Yeah.
knuckles, and we're like, what's going on here? And then I went over and met Brian Patterson, and he was amazing, man.
I'm happy that I got the chance, I'm sure you guys did too, I got the chance to drive around town during that week a little bit.
Right.
And just kind of like,
Is that where you were when we were looking for you?
yeah, I think so, yeah. But I was driving around town, and you kind of see, it's not that different. It's really not that different from any other town in the United States. It's just when you first pull in and that little drag, it's like you think you're in like the Old West. What was the place called that we did the press conference? It was so it was an old train station.
Yeah,
right?
I remember
That was
driving all the
really
way down, parking on the left, and
Yeah,
That was really, really
that
cool.
was
that was a nice little
neat.
setup.
And then, it was.
That was actually the first
What?
time I met Jeff Houston, and that was
Yeah.
Thursday night.
We'll talk about Jeff.
That press conference was well attended. Do you
It
remember?
was.
It was.
It was
Oh,
You
packed.
couldn't even get in there.
Oh.
in a little town like a little city like Cheyenne, man, it was unbelievable.
And I remember that was the Thursday before the fight. We did the press conference, and Jeff Houston was kind of moderating the press conference and hosting it, and he kept saying tomorrow night. And it was the first time I ever met him, and I pulled him aside. I was like, Jeff, it's Saturday night. Please, it's Saturday night. No, it's tomorrow night. I'm like, Jeff, the fight's Saturday night. Today's Thursday. He goes, oh, you're right. And he got right back to it. But now, where was the weigh-ins? Were actually at the building, right? That we set that up right over by the snack bar.
Yeah.
And that was
That was
talking
nice.
about well attended. It was
Yeah.
packed.
Oh yeah.
Completely packed. There's the weigh-ins here.
Yeah, the weigh-ins, that's crazy.
That banner was ordered, I think, on Wednesday afternoon, and it was there Thursday morning.
Is that the Vice piece?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Is that the one I had to drive to FedEx for?
That was the corner pads.
That was corner pads?
Yeah, they had to drive to the airport. They had to get drop shipped.
Oh, and the one thing about Beck, as I'm watching this thing, the one thing that impressed me the most about her was her defense. When John Bastable, I think that's how you say his name, but what a great dude he is. But he taught her as soon as they throw a punch at you, just lift your elbows up so the knuckles would hit the elbows, and just things I didn't really think about with bare knuckle. I was like, what an amazing defense, man.
Well, I think her and Reggie were two of the people that trained
Studied it.
for bare knuckle.
She did.
Everybody else that I spoke with seemed like they were training for their discipline and then trying to implement their discipline without gloves on.
I was impressed with her keeping her strategy the entire fight, because as our buddy Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, but she kept the strategy the entire fight. And
So let me ask you a question, and a lot of people ask me this question. If we could change something about bare knuckle fighting championship one, what would it have been? And I can't think of anything I would have changed. I love the way the whole thing planned out. Obviously, there's hiccups that happen, but I mean,
There's
that's what
gotta
I
be
think we
hiccups.
made it so bittersweet.
I agree. It was I can't tell you one thing I would have changed about the night, the entire experience, and I'm happy that we went. I guess we kind of had to, but I was happy that we went out there on Tuesday, and we got to spend Tuesday, and then we went to actually Tuesday night we all went to Outback Steakhouse. I don't think you were in town yet. We all went to Outback Steakhouse, and I think because we were scared to eat anything else at that point, but we went to Outback.
Didn't we go to a sushi joint or something, so?
We did. I think that was Friday night after weigh-ins or something like that. And then we went to a barbecue place that everybody.
But man, all in all, man, one hell of an event. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, and I was, it's why we are where we are right now, and we're gonna keep on moving.